let's talk about the weekend's box office. Not really a surprise, kind of a surprise, but not, but funny, because Insidious, The Red Door is now in profit, whereas Indiana Jones is still at a massive loss. So second week, Indiana Jones is now, it is second week, isn't it? Is now second at the box office.
Yeah.
And now the third weekend, this weekend, you'll have Mission Impossible. It's done. It's dead. Indiana Jones is dead.
So it's actually fallen to like 3 the last few days too, I think. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, holy shit. No, you're fine. Yeah, so Insidious The Red Door came out with a budget, I think, off the top of my head, it was $16 million. Could be wrong, it could be $19 million, but it was a very, very tiny budget. And like we've been saying, I mean, I know you, Tom, we've said this a few times, low budget horror is what recessions are made for. That's what happens in recessions.
Well, not just that, they're the most... I mean, they never, like, it's never been out of style, right? Like you can always release a horror movie, and 9 times out of 10 it manages to make its money back, because horror is a very easy kind of movie to sell to most audiences, especially the horror audience, which is very loyal. So
massively. So I just think brilliant, absolutely hilarious. Insidious comes out, boom, done, dead. It's in profit already. Can you imagine how Lucasfilm must feel right now?
I hope that Kathleen is clearing out her desk. The top 3 movies, 2 of them are in profit already. Sound of Freedom and Insidious The Red Door.
And Sound of Freedom is the bigger kicker, really. And I'm sure we'll get more into that later.
Yeah. Indiana Jones is dead, and Kathleen Kennedy killed him. It's a shame.
It's so fun. I mean, the thing is, right, second weekend, Indiana Jones only took $26.5 million domestically. That is staggeringly bad. Like, staggeringly bad. It's not even. It's comedic, of course, but staggeringly bad.
Well, it's sad too, Nate. Shit. You know, it's sad because I loved Indiana Jones, right? I loved the movies, I loved the TV show, I loved the comic books, and there were all these high hopes that Kathleen, who was this protege of Spielberg and Lucas, right? Now, of course, we see it now, and we've got the benefit of hindsight for the last 6 or 7 years of her performance. But back in 2013, 2014, there was some hope, right?
Yeah.
And here's where we are. She's basically dug up a corpse of Indiana Jones and put a skin suit on, and it's a travesty. It's a disaster, and I'm here for it. I really am. I'm glad to see it.
Well, I think what's so comedic about this, like, one, the Insidious movie itself, you know, it was the most entertaining film being released the weekend just gone, right?
Yeah.
So it deserved to do well. Is it a great film? No, it's a good directorial effort by Patrick Wilson. He was actually the director on this film, and a lot of people didn't realize that. I think actually they should have pushed that a bit more, because you know, when I learned that,
I didn't know that.
Oh,
no, that's news to me. You're breaking news.
Exactly.
Wow.
But this is what I mean. Exactly. So he was behind the camera. He was the director. And there were some really interesting framing choices. Obviously, he's working with the cinematographer as well. Sure. But there was some of the stuff was relatively unique and quite enjoyable to watch, and also appreciate from someone who's a newbie director. And he also sung the outro credits song as well.
Wow.
This guy is incredibly talented.
Yes.
And so, you know, kudos to the film doing very well, because it is doing very well. I mean, $64 million worldwide. It's already in profit now, because it would have had a tiny marketing budget. They wouldn't have had a lot of money. They're not plastered everywhere. They're not like hundreds of millions of dollars spent on this. And I think what's interesting about this is that this is now back under Sony as well. So Sony has just beaten Lucasfilm and, you know, by proxy Disney with their massive tentpole, should be a tentpole, Indiana Jones, which $26.5 million. Not good.
Good for Sony, though. Good for Sony.
Well, I think what was interesting about the Sony thing, right, is that Sony originally bought the rights to Insidious when it was debuted, and then they were like, we don't really believe in it. We're just gonna give that away effectively. And so then they were like, actually, you know what? Like, just recently, essentially, they're like, you know what? No, we want it back. So we're going to secure the distribution rights back with us. Because they sold it to a company that was absorbed by Universal at the time, which is why it then became a Universal, movie, for most of them. And they're like, no, actually, which is good, like good for Sony as well.
Which is kind of against Tom Rothman's not usually like that. So yeah, it is kind of a strange move for him.
Exactly, right? Like quite odd. You think that they would just release it and like just release it, like you bought it. Why would you? Very odd.
Yeah.
Very, very odd. And they wouldn't have spent much for it either. So bit interesting. But I mean, this is the death of Indiana Jones, unequivocally. Absolutely unequivocally. It's dead. It will not make it back now. I mean, Tom, estimates on how much this movie is now going to lose.
At least $250 to $300 million range we're estimating right now, simply because we heard that they spent around $100 million on the marketing budget after they had pulled back on it. And then this is, I think, just the recent numbers. I don't think this counts all the money that they had spent on it prior to this, because they had saturated the market with this movie. They had the Super Bowl ad. It's been showing on basketball for all of spring here, whatever it was, the Big Ten and all that stuff, March Madness, everywhere, just inundated, to the point where even my dad, it's one of those few times my dad actually brought up, speaking of the devil, I think he just walked in the door, brought up a movie, and he was all for wanting to see it until I told him the plot. So yeah, I think between all that business, it's looking at least 300 million easy.
Yeah. Chris, you got
I think 300 million is the number. That's the number I'm sticking with. I think it's 300. And, what did they pay? What did Disney pay for Lucasfilm? $4 billion? Was it $4 billion, Tom? I think it was.
It was $4 billion, yeah.
So, and they've lost $1 billion in just the past year with Pixar and everything else. Have they gotten an ROI on the purchase of Lucasfilm? I mean, has it been a loss leader the whole time?
I think the prequels would have made. They made some money. You'd have to sit down and figure it out exactly how much they. Not the sequel. Sorry, not the prequel.
Sequel trilogy. Right. Yeah.
They would have made some money. But yeah, I mean, as a brand, they've destroyed Star Wars. They've now destroyed Indiana Jones. They cancelled Willow, so they destroyed that because the viewership was so bad. They don't actually have anything now. They've got nothing.
Well, they've only got one formula. What the formula is: new girl with no weaknesses takes over for the old hero and makes him look like a clown. They did it to Luke. They did it in Willow, and they've done it now to Indiana Jones. I don't know why they keep doubling down, tripling down on the same formula over and over. It clearly does not work, and these movies and films will be hated for years.
Haven't you heard that phrase? Doing different things and expecting different results is the definition of insanity.
Insanity, yeah.
It's not the other way, That's Kathleen Kennedy's saying is, no, if we do different things and expect different results, that's insanity. We must do the same thing and hope for a different result. That's her mantra.
That's a good explanation for what's going on. Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be. I really think that Lucasfilm, they should correct course, right? How do they do that? I think a good first step would be to go back to I think it's called the Hambly edits or the despecialized edits. I'm not sure what they are, but somebody went back and removed all the special editions.
I don't think they're allowed to. Don't think they're allowed to. Tom was speculating recently that they're not actually allowed to do that, in fairness. So,
well, they need to work it out, because they need to do that and put it on a 4K release, home video release.
Yeah, I think. Just release it back in theaters. Work out a new deal with distributors.
Yeah, to start with. Yeah, hey, let's all make some money. That's how you work that out. Let's all make some money.
Well, this is the other thing, isn't it? Right, like the theaters are going to be pissed by this, because the theaters will now have some level of control and sway over Disney, whereas Disney before, used to waltz in with their big D, swinging, like, no, I'm going to boss you around. You work for us. You will make the money. Blah 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 blah. Because we're going to make the money, so you will get whatever cut we decide. Right. It's not the way anymore, because they literally don't have the financials to back it up.
Yep.
Which is
couldn't happen to a better studio.
No. So my prediction, I think 300 is I think that is the number.
I do
I
too.
mean, they spent like $350 million on this alone. That puts it at $700 million break-even point without even looking at the marketing budget. So it's easily $300 million.
I have a fun speculation question. Who suffers the most from this? Does Bob Iger or Kathleen Kennedy?
Shareholders.
Okay. Well, I assume the shareholders are the ones that are going to be out for blood.
Yeah, but the bigger shareholders are the ones which get their voice heard. But the individual shareholders
they
are
are
going to
the
be
ones
really, really angry. No one's going to have any dividends. They were promising dividends. They're not going to have any dividends now. Done. So they lose out the most, actually.
Good point.
They lose out the most.